Hello and welcome to the GSMC Music Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah, and today's episode is brought to you by adamandeve.com, where for a limited time only, you will receive 50% off of just about any item on their website when you type in the promo code GSMC. Once again, welcome to the podcast. Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, November 14th. It is also my hubby's birthday, which is exciting, except that he's not feeling well today, so we're having a very low-key birthday for him, which is not the most fun, but, I mean, nobody wants to be sick on their birthday, right? But at least he is home and he's resting up, and so hopefully he will feel better later. In the meantime, I get to hang out with you guys and talk about music, which isn't a bad gig. Today we are talking about new albums from Taylor Swift. Her new album is called Reputation, and the new album called Jupiter Calling from the Corrs. So first, that Taylor Swift album. This is her 6th album, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect going into it because I have not consistently been a Taylor Swift fan, and it's nothing against her music, really. It's just when she first came out, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. She was a little bit country, and then she transitioned to pop, which is always an interesting transition, and I thought she did it well. But it wasn't music that I was really that interested in. And of course, she's got this unfortunate reputation in the media of writing songs about ex-boyfriends, and people kind of make fun of her, and that, I felt bad for her, but it also was like, yeah, well, I don't know if I'm really interested in that. And then I'm going to have to admit, I have my confession for you. Shake It Off sucked me in. That song is so ridiculous and so catchy and just makes me want to jump up and dance around like an idiot. It sucked me in, and then I started re-listening to some Taylor Swift songs with a little bit of a different ear, and I came to have a new appreciation of some of her music. So as I said, I was not sure what I was going to think of this new album, Reputation, just because of my past history of being ambivalent and wishy-washy when it came to Taylor Swift. But I was pleasantly surprised. It is, I think, a good evolution of her songwriting abilities, of her music. She's executive producer on this album. I think it's an evolution of her sound and her music, but still maintaining that same sort of core that people know her for and like her for. She still has, her songs that are very personal and kind of talk about things that people love to speculate on what Taylor Swift's songs or who Taylor Swift's songs are about. And there's still that on there. There's still some sidelong smirks at Kanye that I just saw on the internet. People are trying to figure out if her new song is about Ed Sheeran, who does appear on this album. He, along with the rapper Future, are on this album. And that is another thing about this, is that there's a rapper who appears on one of the songs, which is a first for Taylor Swift and her albums, and that song they both appear on is the second track on the album. It's called Endgame, and so the album has 15 tracks, and when I first started listening to it, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to hate this, because the first song it's like she started with the worst song and then things looked up from there. I read one review that said she started with the worst song and ended with the best. That was that reviewer's impression. And the first song, I like parts of it, but not all of it. So when I first started listening to it, my first reaction was, I hate this. But then she switches tones. It's like two different songs smushed together. And one song I hate and one song I'm okay with. I kind of like it. So if I didn't have to listen to the parts that I hated, that'd be fine. So for me, as with that reviewer, she started with the worst song on the album. And then things look up from there. As I mentioned, Endgame is the one that features Ed Sheeran and the rapper Future. So that is a little bit of a different direction for Taylor Swift to have rap on the album. She even actually makes an attempt at rapping herself, and it's not bad. but I'm not going to do it, so I can't judge someone else who does it because, yikes. Oh, also on Endgame, Ed Sheeran not only is featured on that song, but he is also listed as one of the writers on that song. Taylor Swift is listed as a writer on all of the songs, and then there's a few other people that are also writing on there with her. Look What You Made Me Do, that is a single that has been out, so you're probably familiar with that. Not my favorite on the album, but I don't hate it or anything, just a little bit too much. And when I listen to it, I'm just like, yeah, okay, all right, because she really hits home on the "Look What You Made Me Do," repeating it over and kind of with different syntax in the way she hits the syllables on that phrase, "Look What You Made Me Do." One thing about this album is that it's a little darker than you might be used to hearing from Taylor Swift, so be prepared for that going into it. It is at one point she acts as, or she sounds like she's doing a voicemail message. Excuse me, I don't know why I couldn't get that sentence out. On the song, it's like a voicemail message, and she says that Taylor's not there because Taylor's dead, and so it's kind of a reference to a new Taylor Swift that is emerging from this. And one thing I read says that lyrically she is embracing the villainous persona she tried on for size on Blank Space, if you remember that. And on the song I Did Something Bad, she doesn't just want to do something bad, but she wants us to know that she would do it over and over and over again. That's the lyric. I would do it over and over and over again if I could. So by the 3 overs, you should understand that she does wish to do something bad over and over again. I think one of my favorite songs on the album is track 4, Don't Blame Me, and probably because it's got a really great gospel vibe, and it just, that gospel vibe kind of sucked me in. It's, she uses the love as a drug metaphor, and she's used that before, but it works, and it works here again, I think. An interesting side note about Don't Blame Me is, and the album as a whole actually, Don't Blame Me is one of several tracks on this album that contain references in the lyrics to The Great Gatsby. So if you're a fan of The Great Gatsby, or you're just a fan of interesting trivia about your albums, there you go. The album is doing well, even if she has veered from her normal sound a little bit. It could have, she's actually, making a choice that could have backfired a little bit. But according to the New York Times, as of 3 days post the release of the album, it had sold 925,000 copies. About 600 of those were digital downloads. So it's doing well. It is, people seem to be enjoying it. And like I said, it's a little bit of a different perspective from her. It's a little darker, and it's a little more, it continues her evolution as an artist, I think. It's a little more of a mature sound in some cases, but also still holding the core of what we expect from Taylor Swift. So overall, I was pleasantly surprised because I wasn't sure what to think going in, but I ended up actually really liking it overall and listening to the whole album several times in a row that first day that I got it. So not bad. If you're a Taylor Swift fan, you're going to enjoy it. If you're not a Taylor Swift fan, or you haven't been for some reason, give it a shot. See what you think. She's, I think, evolved enough that if you maybe didn't like some of her stuff in the past, you might be able to get into some of these. But she's managed to maintain the core of her sound and her persona so that if you are a fan, you're still going to recognize Taylor. You're still going to enjoy that, she's kept the same kind of way of writing songs and kind of kept the core of her personality in there. So that is my review of Taylor Swift's 6th album, Reputation. We're going to take our first break of the podcast, and when I come back, I'll be talking about the Corrs' new album, Jupiter Calling. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Welcome back to the GSMC Music Podcast. Before the break, we were talking about Taylor Swift's new album, Reputation, and I said that I was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. But now I'm going to move on to the Corrs' new album, Jupiter Calling. And if you're not familiar with the Corrs, they came to prominence and popularity in the mid to late 90s, and maybe that's why I've always liked them so much. I was in college during that time, so they were one of my go-to groups. Plus, they are an Irish band. It's consisting of four siblings, 3 sisters and a brother. And they mix traditional Irish music with contemporary pop kind of music. And so they've got this really great mixture of traditional and contemporary, which is the sound that they go with. And this album is no different. You still get that mix of traditional and contemporary. This is their 7th studio album. They actually took a break in the 2000s from about 2005 to 2015. They kind of took a break and started families and those sorts of things. Then they came back in 2015 with their 6th album, White Light. And now, 2 years later, they have come out with their 7th studio album, Jupiter Calling. So that just gives you a little bit of a background on the group in case you weren't familiar with them. As I said, I have been a fan since their first album, and I love their mix of traditional and contemporary. This album carries that forward. Andrea, who is the lead vocals, has a really amazing voice with a lot of depth. All 4 siblings are on vocals at certain points, but Andrea is the lead singer, and she really does have an amazing voice with just a beautiful depth of emotion and range in it. This album is, if I had to describe it overall, kind of very mellow. It's not my favorite, but it's very mellow, like I said, and it's one of those songs that if you put on and just play in the background, it's perfect. It doesn't have any songs that right now I feel like I could just belt out and sing along with, like some of the other albums of theirs. But it's not an album that there are any songs that, I really am mad at. I don't hate any of the songs. They're all quite lovely and lyrical, and because they do mix those traditional Irish sounds with more contemporary sounds, you still get the tin whistle, you still get some pipes, you still get the bodhran on occasion, and just some really lovely instrumentation, which is one thing that I have come to count on in albums from the Corrs. Now, it starts out with this traditional and contemporary sounding, much more traditional on their first track, a lot more traditional sounding than some of their other songs have been. It's very mellow, maybe a little too mellow. It's almost a little down. Like it makes me just a little bit too low for me. And that one's called Song of Solomon. But then it kind of goes up from there. So apparently the theme today is not the greatest opening numbers, but moving up from there on the albums that we're talking about. Chasing Shadows has it's a little more upbeat. That's the second number, and it actually had a little bit of a country feeling to me, like country music. It's not country music, but it just had a little bit of country feeling, like undertones in there mixed in with those traditional Irish sounds. The third track, Bulletproof Calling, is one of my favorites. It's a little heavier on the drums, a little heavier on, it's got some more electric guitar in it, so it's got a little bit of a different sound. But I think what I like about it, in addition to the music, is that one of the lyrics, my favorite lyric, is "Let love in, let love rule the world." So for me, that just speaks to me, and I really, really like that track. SOS. The sixth track is where the name of the album, Jupiter Calling, comes from. And when it first started playing, I was like, oh, this is this is a lot more upbeat. This is kind of bubbly. And it does sound upbeat and bubbly until you really start to listen to the words. And when you start to listen to the words, it's not upbeat at all. In fact, it's billed as one of their more political songs that they have ever done. It is SOS stands for, not Son of Solomon, that's the first one. I'm sorry, excuse me, Song of Syria. And it's got some actually quite dark subject matter and grim imagery. So it's a weird mix of upbeat and kind of bubbly, but then with these undertones, not undertones, but underlying lyrics or overlaid lyrics, I guess you would say, that are not upbeat and not bubbly. So it's a little bit odd. No Go Baby, it's so sad. I don't know exactly what the meaning behind the lyrics are. I don't know what the person or people who wrote the songs would say about it, but it sounds like either the death of a baby or a baby who was wished for and never appeared or something along those lines. And it's so plaintive. It's so sad. It's got very simple instrumentation, piano and violin, and it's beautiful, but it really is just, so sad. And then my only other comment from a track perspective would be on the last track, which is The Sun and the Moon, and it is also a beautiful song. My only criticism of it would be that it is almost 8 minutes, and it gets a little repetitive toward the end. By the end, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, this was lovely for the first 4 to 5 minutes, and now I'm kind of over it. So, didn't quite like the way it ended on that somewhat drawn out note, but it wasn't enough to ruin everything for me. I think my takeaway for this album is that if you haven't heard of the Corrs, give it a shot, because it's still got a lot of beautiful elements to it. It's still got Andrea's beautiful vocals. It's still got beautiful instrumentation with some of the traditional Irish music and Irish instruments. It's, like I said, just one of those that you can put on in the background and listen to it on repeat, and it'll just sort of mellow you out and enhance your day with these lovely musical arrangements and vocals. And so it really is a beautiful album on a lot of levels. If you are already a Corrs fan, I don't think they're going to really lose any fans here. It is definitely, it's not the 90s, and it shouldn't be, because, it's their debut album came out 27 years ago. I would hope that they wouldn't sound exactly like they sounded in the 90s, but it's definitely the Corrs. I mean, it has that very, very definite Corrs sound to it. So if you're a fan, you like I am, you're not going to be mad at this album. Let's just put it that way. And so I'd give it a good solid kind of middle grade. Like, while it didn't just jump out and punch me in the face with amazingness when I listened to it, when I first listened to it, it's definitely going to be in my playlist as go-to songs for just those quieter moments when I want something a little softer, a little more melodic, a little more, I know I keep saying mellow, but it really is, and it's beautiful, and I'm going to, I'm definitely adding it to my Corrs collection. So, 2 very different albums today between Taylor Swift and the Corrs, but 2 albums that I think have both shown the progression of these artists as they have matured, kind of keeping the core of themselves while maturing in their sound a little bit. I think, again, if you're a fan of either of these, if you're a fan of Taylor Swift, you'll like the album. If you're a fan of the Corrs, you'll like this album. If you have not listened to either of them, I would say definitely give them both a shot, because you might be surprised. You might find something that you weren't expecting, and you might find a new type of music or a new artist that you hadn't really heard of before, and now you want to hear more from them. We are going to take our second break of the podcast, and when we come back, we'll be wrapping things up here on the GSMC Music Podcast. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Music Podcast. We have talked so far about Taylor Swift's Reputation and the Corrs' Jupiter Calling, and now, as I've been doing, I like to spend this third and final segment just talking a little bit about music in a more general sense rather than a specific album, because music speaks to all of us in different ways, and it plays an important part in our lives. Because, I mean, just by its very existence, music plays an important role in our lives. So I've been thinking about the holidays because they're right around the corner. As you know, Thanksgiving is next week already. Can you believe that? And then it's Christmas, basically, because it's already Christmas for a lot of people, right? So Christmas music, a lot of people either love it or hate it. And I'm one of those people that loves it. I love to listen to Christmas music every year. I've got my favorites. I love Bing Crosby. I love the Anderson sisters. I love Sarah McLachlan's Winter Song from, it's probably 20 years old now. I love just so many different albums, and I've got my Christmas playlist on my iPod that I break out every Christmas. I'm one of those people that doesn't allow myself to listen to Christmas music until after Thanksgiving. Although I'm also one of those people. I said the Anderson sisters earlier. I meant the Andrews sisters. Sorry about that. I'm one of those people also who, if I'm out shopping, like I remember a couple of years ago, I was out shopping and the store was playing Bing Crosby and the Andrews sisters, one of the songs that they did together, and I found myself singing along, and I was like, well, there goes that Thanksgiving rule. But I mean, it's not like a hard and fast rule or anything. It's not like I'll run screaming out of a store if they're playing Christmas music before Thanksgiving. But for me personally, I don't break out my playlist until after Thanksgiving. And that's really everyone's preference. I try not to watch Christmas movies until after Thanksgiving either. And on kind of a funnier note, I know a family who has that rule as well. No Christmas music before Thanksgiving, but their rule is no Christmas music until after Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, as soon as that table is cleared, as soon as that kitchen is cleaned, actually, I think while they're cleaning the kitchen, they turn on the Christmas music. Thanksgiving dinner is over, bam, it is Christmas. So it makes me laugh. So, Christmas music, do you love it or do you hate it? Do you love, and if you love it, what kind do you love? Do you love the cheesy, sort of, kitschy songs like, I don't know, the Chipmunks or Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer or some of those? Do you love some of the old standbys? Do you love, for me, I actually like a mixture of traditional hymns, traditional Christmas carols, and some newer contemporary songs. I don't always like the newer songs because they aren't familiar. And for me, Christmas music is all about nostalgia, and it's all about those songs that I grew up singing and I love. But there are, I mentioned Sarah McLachlan's Winter Song, and I love that album, and that doesn't really have any traditional songs on it at all. So I even love a blend of genres in terms of the artists, from country to R&B to hip-hop to just a lot of different kinds of music. I just love Christmas music, and I will sing along with it, and I will listen to it every year, regardless of how many times I've listened to it before. just like I will watch the movie White Christmas every year, Bing Crosby really plays a huge part in my holiday traditions. Christmas would not be Christmas without Bing Crosby for me. Basically, I could keep saying I love Christmas music for the next, 20 minutes, but I'm pretty sure you get the point that, hey, did you know that I love Christmas music? So I am looking forward to next Friday after Thanksgiving, breaking out the Christmas music. My husband's already ready to put up, he wants to put up the tree and definitely the outdoor lights. So we'll see how that goes. And I mean, he would be the National Lampoon house if he could, with all of those Christmas lights, and we'd be able to see our house from space if we let him have his way and we had unlimited funds for the electric bill. Basically what I'm saying is that music, as I've said the last couple of weeks, really creates and reminds us of memories. And so for me, when I listen to Bing Crosby and I listen to even Elvis, then I think of my childhood and I think of my parents and the music that we listened to growing up. And it just brings back such wonderful Christmas memories for me. So music is just a wonderful way to remember certain people, remember certain times, remember certain events in your life. And I hope that you find that with music. I hope you have those go-to artists, those go-to genres, the go-to songs that really, really help you no matter what situation you are in life. So I'm going to wrap things up here. I feel like I'm starting to lose my voice, and you don't probably want to listen to me sound like I need to clear my throat constantly. Thank you so much for joining me as we talked about Taylor Swift's new album, Reputation, and the Corrs' new album, Jupiter Calling. I hope you will join me next time. In the meantime, you can find all of our podcasts at www.gsmcpodcast.com. You can download those podcasts on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spreaker, anywhere, any apps that you use for your mobile device. And you can follow us on social media. I would love to hear from you on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. So come find us on social media. Thank you again for joining me. Please join me again next time. In the meantime, just enjoy whatever music you love to listen to, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you.